Both of us single dads from the Midwest, we can talk about it. Both of us single dads from the Midwest, we can talk about it. Both of us single dads from the Midwest, we can talk about it. Or we can get gully, y'all size up your body and put some white chalk around it.
Welcome to the Single Dads of the Midwest, episode 28. I'm joined by the amazing Rhett to talk about voice acting, among other things. And thanks again, Mr. Don Sheldon, for keep on introducing me to new cool people and make this podcast a reality. Rhett is a voice actor, but he also has a full-time day job. But yeah, Rhett, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, hi. Nice to meet y'all. For anyone that's listening, my name's Rhett Kennedy. And yeah, I do voiceover, teach it a bit, have a voiceover meetup group, and have done lots of different kinds of voiceover projects over the last several years, audiobooks, lots of e-learning, corporate, and, fancy myself a bit of a character actor. And yeah, that's pretty much it on that side as far as voiceover goes.
Nice. And from my understanding, this wasn't something you had been doing like from a very young age. You kind of fell into it. So do you want to walk us through your journey into the foray,
Sure.
so to speak?
Sure. Well, I come from a very interesting family. We were always doing voices and characters and all that kind of stuff. My father was always doing strange things, and I think we picked up on that. Listened to a lot of characters from the old time movies, and we were always sort of making fun of them, because I was born in the late 60s, so we still had a lot of those golden age sorts of things peppering around, and introduced a lot of stand-up comedy and character work. George Carlin, for instance, was really big into character work, and I kind of just grew up doing it. And then I actually, when I was 12 years old, I fell into Dungeons and Dragons, and so I got into that and got into DMing and all those strange voices that I had along with my family. And my wife, fast forward a couple decades, my wife sort of got tired of hearing me constantly rattling off different character voices and accents and all that. And she said, well, basically, you either need to go into therapy or you should get into voice acting. I said, well, I can't afford therapy, so I guess I have to put all these voices out into the and record them, send them out to people. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That was about 5 or 6 years ago I started doing that.
Nice. And yeah, going to Dungeons and Dragons point, I do feel like it's like a very good outlet for people to like express creativity and thinking interesting ways. I mean, I've played myself, and it's crazy to do this kind of very unique kind of game that started much decades before I was born, is still like made its way into the mainstream, or it's still very much in the popular culture.
Yeah, what's really interesting about that is that it allowed introverts to express themselves, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people that had, a lot of times introverts, because they're kind of quiet, and I still consider myself an introvert, although everyone tells me an extrovert, but I still need to go into my cave and ruminate, even though I love people.
I'm the same.
So yeah. So I mean, it's, but yeah. So you're very shy, and then you connect with people, and then you get to live experiences through doing these characters. And I was the guy that, well, first of all, I mean, maybe I was a little too much of a control freak in my own sense, that I always, I couldn't just do one character. Like I was always running around just playing with different voices and stuff. So a lot of times I'd play what was called a bard character, very creative.
Bard, yeah.
Yeah, I do bards.
The musician. When your team is getting attacked and you're just the bard in the background.
But I got to do a lot of different characters. Get me in a city, I was throwing in the voices, but that didn't last too long, in the sense that I almost always DM'd. Like I DM'd for 40 years. So wow. Yeah, a lot of creativity, making up my own languages and runes, and had to make up voices and character voices. I would make up the languages, so I'd have to figure out a way to not full-fledged languages. I'm not a linguist, but I would try to think how do these things are pronounced, and I would think, how does orcish sound, right? And so I would make up some sort of garble speak, and then I would throw in words, like to make it sound like I was really speaking. So I'd be like, and I started understanding that whenever I did that stuff, I had to think about what I was actually saying. So I couldn't just be like making up garble. If I was angry or if I was happy, it's a different thing of going, if I'm angry, I'm like, oh, na stryker av mok. Or if I'm happy, I'm like, oh, igna small drag. Like you kind of
Yeah.
have to think about intention and, things like that. And just developing characters, in Dungeons and Dragons and that sort of thing is very good for over the top, right? You're doing very over the top, exaggerated characters, which is a really good acting skill because what you want to do in the beginning is go way over the top, when you're doing acting, because you can pull it back down. It's hard for you to start it low and then push it up. There's a voiceover saying you can rope them in, but you can't rope them out. So yeah. And then just doing that, kicking that around and then I had to have an outlet because, I don't want to say I'm an NSFW person, but I'm the kind of person that likes to push things to the edge of NSW at work.
Sure.
Not mean, but, just a little comedy interjection.
Sure.
The board meeting is getting a little too boring.
I feel you. Like I did. Yeah. I think because we both lived, well, I mean, I'm now a grad student in LA, but I lived in Silicon Valley the last 6 years, and there's sometimes a monotony to it where it's fun to have these creative outlets to kind of escape that, for sure.
Yeah. And the thing about working in Silicon Valley and things like that is you stumble upon people that are just so creative and they have the map of being corporate person, like, yes, we're going to talk and we're going to do this. You'll talk to them later and they'll say, oh, actually, I was a concert pianist, played at Carnegie Hall, or, I was one person was like, oh, I was a speechwriter for Obama. And I'm like, you're the same person I've been talking to the last year, making fart jokes with. So I'm glad I didn't know who they were beforehand. Right.
Yeah.
Because I would have been like, you were that person. So yeah, it's good. There's a lot of intelligent, very bright, brilliant people. And unfortunately, a lot of people kind of give that up. They give up their creativity. It's kind of a little bit of a, Mephistophelian, gamble they take. And I think they really, one of the things I wanted to always do where I'm at is try to pull that out of people, because everyone's told to grow up. You're grown up now. And it's like you're losing something. You're losing that spark.
I have actually a lot of thoughts on that. But before that, could you explain what that gambit was that you just mentioned?
Oh, I just meant Faustian, a Faustian gambit, Mephistopheles. And I figured I'd throw in a different devil. But yeah, it's just where they, you make the trade-off, right? I mean, when you become a certain age and people say, oh my gosh, some people want to be full-time artists and they can't, either because of, they haven't developed it enough, or it's just a hard slog. You can be excellent at whatever your craft is, and you could still just be struggling. It's a matter of persistence and time and being in the right place and knowing the right people and fostering relationships. It's not just being good. You have to be out there. So,
Sure.
but yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people give that up, and I just, and you don't have to give it all up. That's the thing is, still carve out some time, just even if it's an hour here and there, just carve out some time. It's going to make you a better person, and it's going to actually help you, I think, even in your other business endeavors, or, it unlocks something inside of you. So.
No, for sure. Like I'm someone, we're getting very deep on the podcast very quickly, but I feel like this is a good conversation to have it. Like I'm someone who sometimes struggles with like low self-esteem, but then like sometimes I watch motivational speeches and there is this like idea of like there's 7 billion people, like you have to embrace your own uniqueness. And it's like, I don't want to live in a world where I can't do like be myself and be silly and fun, because sometimes I have a hard time expressing that. I'm like a very like stoic, serious person, but like I want to be silly. I still watch like comic book shows and I love graphic novels.
Yeah. Right.
And so one thing I've been learning recently is magic, like magic tricks. Not Magic the Gathering, but Magic the Gathering is also really cool.
Yeah.
But like I just realized I don't think anyone has ever, outside of like going to a show, done a magic trick for me since like high school. And like it's weird because people are just so surprised. Like people have not seen like magic in person in a while, and like it's kind of scary because everyone's like on their phones like all the time, and it's like, what if we did something else? So finding ways to express myself is like
Right.
something I can relate to. And going to the skill part, like I would say the creative outlet I love the most is music. And
Mm,
one thing that you said that resonated with me is I one time met this musician at this concert. Now he wasn't like playing, but he was just someone in the crowd, and he was like really, really good, like really good guitar player. And like
right.
he was literally an EMT. He's like, I cannot do this because like there's a lot of luck involved. Like he had more technical chops than some of the musicians I've seen,
Right.
like in probably make more money, but just out of luck and various circumstances, he wasn't able to do that. But hopefully he was able to do that at least um, on the side.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and by the way, if you occasionally see me staring down, I'm like listening what you're saying and trying to take notes. If I haven't, I'm like, oh, he has this really good idea. I have to remember this, or I'm going to be like, pook. So I'm not like, I'm just like, he's saying something very profound. Must remember.
No worries, no worries.
But it's true. The other thing too, it's interesting about the artistic soul, right? I mean, this goes for people in general, but particularly I think towards artists is that when you talk about self-esteem issues, a lot of artists have it. I mean, we don't, and it's rough too, because an artist when you try to be a professional artist, you have to try to cultivate this hard outer shell so you can take the slings and arrows of, people on YouTube or just people in life going,
Yeah.
oh, you're an artist. What are you really going to do with your life? Or,
Yeah.
or someone on YouTube or whatever, it sucks in the comment section. There's nothing, and I don't mind if someone says, oh, hey, actually, I would wish you would produce things this way, or I find this, give me some constructive things, but just don't like come at people.
Yeah.
And that hurts people. And artists you have to have that outer shell, but also you can't be like some people and just make it non-porous. You have to have holes that the light so things can come in. So, because as an artist, you're listening, you're receiving as well as giving. In order for you to give, you have to receive. You have to receive the messages, from your environment, from your friends, from your family, what you watch, what you hear, all this, what you feel. And then what you do is you take all that and broadcast it out. So you have to let things in and out. And it's, and you have to remain sensitive. So 100%. If you lose it, you become this hard person. You're not going to produce as well as an artist because you're not receiving. So it's it's tough. It's very tough. But definitely I just, anyway, yeah, that's what I was just going to get at.
Continue, I appreciate it. I feel like great conversation so far. So I was curious, how did you go from this being sort of a hobby to something you can make? I know you don't do it full time, but at least something of a living, into, I guess, getting into the business side of voice acting.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is there's no magic in the sense of it is essentially the same process you have in everything else in life, right? It's you want to become good at something, you get training, right? It's a combination of training yourself and getting other people to help train you. It's making contacts with people. How do you make contacts with people? Well, you can go to a lot of people in voiceover and other places. You make contacts in college with your professors, right? You also make contacts by writing people, by becoming becoming a fan of someone's work, or and investing in the genres that you want to get into, so you get to know people, and not in a false way, right? You're not going to be disingenuous, but you have to put in the work. You have to get the education, self-educate, get to know people, make a reputation for yourself by doing good work. Everyone wants to work with people that are easy to work with, right? Yeah. So, I mean, and we kind of know, yes, let's put it this way, I'm a manager where I work, right? I'd rather hire someone who's enthusiastic and has great potential than someone that's a prima donna that I can just tell there's going to be a problem. I'd rather invest that extra time into someone that, is worth it, and that's how it works too with other people. Like, it'll work that in talent agencies and stuff like that. They're just not going to want to work with someone who's, show up on time. What's the first rule of any job? Show up on time. Be kind, be generous too. Be generous, and people will be generous back to you. And that's, the secret, and persistence, right? Just keep, when you're doing things in the arts, it's like being sales, right? You're just putting drops in the bucket.
Yeah.
And eventually it's gonna, and persistence and really when you audition and keep going on the project, you can do things of research. You can go to different websites. You can find jobs on Twitter. You can find jobs on casting call sites, what's called pay to play sites, where basically you can pay a fee and then you can audition a little, audition off the sites. There's ways of getting in things. And then the other thing is, if you can't find the work, make your own work, make your own passion projects, put them out there. And then, eventually you'll find your crowd, and your crowd will find you. That's basically it, because the beauty of the internet is there's something out there. There's usually someone out there or a group of people that love what you love.
Yeah.
You just have to find them, and they're looking for you too. There's people there just going, where I want this, this man, woman, X person, I need this, like, there's something that, and then you're like, that's it. That's it. That's what I want. So yeah, that's what I would say, persistence and loving it. Art's they always tell you to love your craft, because, you might be riding high and then you're going to go low for a while. You just got to ride the wave.
For sure.
So, yeah.
When you were getting started, did you come up with like demo reels or tapes?
Yeah. I mean, I actually, I did the wrong thing, and I still am doing the wrong thing. I learned to make my own, but I paid but to be fair, I did a deep dive on the research. Yeah. I have a good ear for drama. I also, where I work, where I presently work, I worked in audiovisual, and I knew a lot of AV engineers that were, they have degrees in audio engineering. So I would start off with stuff and I go, and I'm like, why is this coming out of one headphone? And they're like, oh, you got to pan it, and then what happens is usually just need something to kind of get you started. And I was like, oh, I could pan a sound here. I could have a bird go here. Oh, I could have the jungle sound here. Oh, I can make my voice. I can have my voice talking, like I could be, talking like this one time with this sort of voiceover in this pan, and then I'll be over here on the other side, right? Or I'll be over here in the next time. Like I'll pan it back and forth, make it sound like there's a conversation. Yeah. Listen hard, try to learn off people. So, but what you should do is you should get a lot of training, take a lot of classes, and then, yes, when you're out in the minor leagues, you could fool around, do your basic recording. But you should, to pursue it properly, is get a demo done by a real audio engineer who is specifically geared towards voiceover, because they don't just have the knowledge of audio engineering, but they probably, they all have that obviously, but they also understand industry standards and what the current zeitgeist is of what's going on in that kind of genre of voiceover. So like, back in the day, everyone had to talk like this, or, everyone was just like this. Then when they're doing announcer voice, they don't want that anymore, right? What they want, except if they're doing kind of a making fun thing or a specific kind of feel, they want someone to be like, hey, tonight on, tonight on CBS, we're going to, like, they want someone that sounds more like a regular person, because they want honesty. People are so craving honesty, a connection. They want a connection, and it works for character work too. You have to have a connection with people and a certain amount of honesty to carry that forward. So yeah, but I make my own, I do my own, but I also like that aspect of it. And a lot of voiceover people say, don't do that, because they want you to be focused on it. I agree, but there's nothing you can do if you have the time and the patience and the love of it. You just have to be willing to spend time on it. Getting coaching and all that will give you it'll give you a shortcut. You'll go talk with someone who's knowledgeable, right? Just knows their thing. Or you can make a lot of mistakes. Yeah. And that's okay too. Sometimes there's value in that, is stumbling and falling and getting up again and again. So,
well, I feel like that's kind of a part of any art, and how you get better. Like, you're gonna have to hit those mistakes and failures.
Yeah, same thing with voiceover. I mean, if you're doing character voiceover work, when you're practicing, you have to have no problem with exploring the heights and depths and nuances of your voice and the cadences, and sound stupid. Right? You have to be willing to do that. You have to be like, you're like doing like a scream and you're like, oh, well, that didn't sound right. Oh, and you're going, oh, yeah, oh, like you're doing all that for a while and trying to figure out the best way to scream, or the best way to sound angry in a certain way. There's different kinds of anger, different kinds of love, and all that kind of stuff. So experimentation, and same thing with painting. I do illustration and all that sort too. So it's just get into the toolbox, have at it.
Makes sense. And I'm assuming for voice acting, it's similar to probably singing, that everyone has like different ranges and different like, gifts.
Yeah. I personally consider, any kind of voice acting and talking. Talking. We're just singing right now. We just don't think of it. We're phonating. We're having, vocal folds being engaged. We're having, breath control. We're doing mouth work. Mouth work is basically controls what our accent is. So, whether you have a standard American accent, or you have a different sort of accent, or, you're doing this sort of accent, or, are you doing this sort of accent? It doesn't really matter. You just have to, you think that's the mouth. But yeah, it's singing, vocal cords, high. I always tell people to do singing exercises, do sirens, do breath control exercises, all that, because it's going to heighten your voice. It's going to make your voice stronger. And also it's going to, you're going to learn to surmount that issue in your head. Like, oh, I can't go that high, or I can't go that low. But yeah, there is a range, right? I'm obviously, someone who's I'm not going to have the same range of someone, a woman that's doing Little Anime Girls.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to have, to the depths of the bottom of the sea that some of these bass.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle somewhere, but I do train, and there's tricks you can do. Like you can do vocal fry. So if I'm doing vocal fry, I can go down further into my chest, and then I can go down here. And the next thing you know, I don't really have a low voice, but I have a lower voice than I otherwise normally would have. Right. Or I can project things, a little bit further in the back like that. So it sounds like this, or I can bring it up further into the nose, or I can, just have a sort of thing where I'm doing this, or bring it up nice and high. So it all depends. Wow. You can add clarity, or you can add gravel, or you can do things with it. So you're just, it's about space, manipulation of space of the mouth. There's thing, soft palate. There's lots of different things you can do inside your mouth. Once you become aware of it, then you can manipulate it. And you get that by teaching, learning, and playing around.
Yeah, I imagine it's a lot of trial and error, but that was incredible. It was cool to see all those different, or hear all those different voices.
Well, yeah, it's one of my party tricks.
Got to get something everyone has one from all those hours.
Yeah, nothing. Well, I always have a joke. I say, what skill? They say, what skills do you have? I said, I have a lot of skills, just nothing that works. That stands out in a resume. It's like, do you want to hear Hawaiian nose humming? Do you want to hear, it's like, I know how to do that. Do you want to hear, a pterodactyl noise? I can do bad poetry on command, whatever the hell, it's just always bad, stupid stuff. It's like, no, do you know SQL? No. No, sorry.
That's such a Bay Area thing to SQL.
Yeah. Well, if I want to go Bay Area, I'd be like, the latest metrics. To find out that they, just keep throwing in the word metrics and all that.
Oh man, takes me back.
No, it just, yeah. I mean, the first when I walked into Silicon Valley, and I'm kind of like, the old fashioned ways are the best, like I want like sort of direct language, and I'm like, why don't you just say this? And they're like, well, that doesn't sound. And I'm like, yeah, but it gets the point right across. Just get to the point, and they're afraid, well, that might offend someone. But and not only saying that, just like, I don't know, time language too.
Yeah,
like
there's a lot of roundabout language for sure.
Yeah. But I also like, someone going, like, I wish sometimes we'd have like days where we would talk in certain kinds of, like 1940s day. Today we're going to talk about the latest matrix, metrics at the board meeting today. What do you say, Tommy? Tommy, no, step up right here. Like it's always.
It'd be fun, yeah. Just do. Do you just break out in other voices at your day job?
I do, which is sad.
That sounds
I mean, that's
good.
kind.
No, that
That's
sounds
kind of
good. That sounds fun. I don't want to work there. Yeah.
well, that's kind of what started it too, because I always did, and what I did is I ran video conferencing, right? So I'd get a lot of admins and stuff that were just scared, because it's a VP, SVP meeting. I mean, I've ran meetings, I'm going to name drop, with Larry and Sergey, and stuff like that, right? From Google.
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah.
some people might not know.
No,
They're
that's
like,
fair.
Larry,
That's fair.
who's Larry?
The biggest demographic is probably Silicon Valley for listeners to this podcast, but no, it is good to explain.
Larry
heads.
down the street. He works at the bar. So but
Heads
anyway,
are former heads of Google for those that don't know.
So they're just kind of like, people are scared. So when I first started, I was like, okay. I got into the job and I was like, don't say anything weird. Don't say anything weird. I'm literally having an argument with myself because I'm a weird person. Sure. So I'm like, be normal. And my boss, my coworkers at the time said, well, video conference people should be not heard, not seen. And I couldn't take it after a while because people were worrying. Like they were all scared, and I'd test the waters and I'd start chatting to them. I go, well, I'd make a little joke, see if they laughed. And then after a while, I would get on there to keep them. If I knew who the audience was, you have to make sure you know who you're talking to, and if they have a sense of humor. But I'd be like, someone get on a call, and I go, "Are you scallywags? Are you ready to mind the streams and start up the video conferencing?" And they'd get a chuckle, right? And it would just blow off the, a little bit of that. I mean, I do that in chat too. I'd start typing things in a weird accent or like doing stuff. And they would play along with it because, like I said, a lot of people at these places are very creative. They're really intelligent, and they're just fun people, but they have to wear the mask, right? Yeah. So I'm trying to tear the mask down a little bit. And then I act goofy, but at the same time, I'm like going, and I'll be like, we have 647 people on the stream right now, unique viewers, and I'd be like, you got to make sure you know your job. You don't want to be like the person that's like the idiot, and it's like, get this, the hook comes in and
so exactly.
So I
calculated risks.
Yes. And but I found out that people want a little bit of that. In general, they just want something to break up the day a little bit, put them relaxed, and also a reminder that everything is important. It's to people, but also, hey, this is just a human experience you have. Roll with it, enjoy it. Enjoy it. You're working at really cool companies. Really nice people. You've worked there. I mean, you've worked at places like that. They're usually very nice to a fault. So enjoy your time. And play, please play in the sandbox a little bit. I know, in the United States, everyone's so stressed out. And so, work these hours, what are you doing? I work 60 hours this week. How many did you get paid for? 40. I mean, they're just trying to work so hard, and you got to blow off the steam. Humans are not meant to be machines.
I agree. And unfortunately, COVID, I feel like obviously in it itself, it's bad. But one thing that I feel was lost because so when COVID happened, I worked for a year remotely before I went to school. So I just noticed that not only do you obviously it's like a shitty situation and you're more isolated, but you lose that human bonding experience. And I feel like these sort of water cooler moments and things like that just go away, and it really hurts. And I still feel like we're dealing with the aftermath.
It's interesting because what I have, I work in video conferencing. I'm constantly doing video conferencing. This is what I do.
Yeah.
So I found out, for me, partially because I'm an introvert. I mean, I don't act like it. I come up to people and I'm like, hey, buddy, but at the same time, I've always tried to make a connection, and you can have a connection with people if you video conference like what we're doing now, but you have to take down the wall. You have to see that this is a medium of communication, and that you can laugh, you can cry. And even when I'm talking to people that are, are reporting to me, or I'm reporting, I'm always trying to push the boundary to kind of bring in the humanity. And also, it's also useful from a standpoint of I try to schedule things for people to have time to be friends with each other. I'll hold meetings once in a while, just every once in a while. Let's just talk and have fun. Let's have a fun time. Yeah. Let's just I don't want to talk about work for half an hour because people don't have lunch breaks,
Yeah.
well, I mean, they have lunch breaks, obviously when they leave inside their house, but let's just talk and BS and just communicate, right?
Yeah.
And you learn so much more about people. You learn what they love, what they dislike, and then you think, as a manager or a fellow worker, how can I make that better for them? How can I take off some of that stress, or how can I help them grow? And you learn that not in the, Gerald, we need to talk today about your latest performance review. We're going to pull up the spreadsheet right here, and that, and so that's going to be like someone's going to mask goes on, and they're going to say, okay, how do I bullshit my way through this? But if you're talking to someone, and not in a mean way, you're not trying to use things, but you're just going, hey, what's going on with your life? And they're like, oh yeah, this is hurting me, or this is making me feel happy. What brings joy to you? What, how can we help make this work for you? And that's kind of what we'll go circle back into voiceover is, whenever you do voiceover, how do you serve the needs of your client? How do you get inside their brain and listen to them and reflect off them? Because, you're using your voice to reflect what they need. Now, you might put a slightly different spin on it because you know how to do it in your craft a little better. Ultimately, the customer and client still says what they want. But, you'll often do things for them that they'll go, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. I never thought of that. You might, they might change the words around a little bit. They might, just things like that. But you have to always think, how do I serve the purpose of the author? How do I serve the audience? That sort of thing. And that goes to listening and trying to reflect off of people. So, yeah.
That makes sense. And what advice would you have for anyone that is specifically, and I think you are also a teacher of voiceover, is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I have a meetup that I call it VL Alchemy, which basically what I do, because it's magic, right?
Exactly.
But also it's what we do is an alchemist takes an ingredient and mixes it with another ingredient. So my idea is that you take an element, you work it until you understand it, and then you add another element. And then once you add 2, it enriches the combination, and then 3, and then 4. Sure. So you're not just like, throw it against the wall, go. But yeah. So I have meetups. I also, where I work, I also have been doing lately some coaching there, because there's a lot of people that are interested in voiceover, whether they're doing their own voiceover work, or they want to understand how artists work, or their copy, or what's called scratch discs, where they'll say the words and then they'll give it to a voiceover sometimes so they can get an idea of what they're trying to get at. Just the person who's doing the scratch disc is either shy, or they don't have the training, or they don't feel they have the necessary vocal quality. Sometimes they want a man, sometimes they want a woman, sometimes they want someone with a certain kind of cadence or accent, need American, need someone with a, Irish or that kind of thing. They'll just, so they give it to the other voiceover actor. But yeah, I love doing that. It's when you can do something for someone and you see something, it lights up, their eyes go, poof. It's one of the most beautiful things you can ever witness. And then you can go, I was a part of that. I was a part of that. I got inside them a little bit, and I just set that little flame, and it is such a beautiful thing. You just, yeah. I mean, I even had an experience with that last night. I was working with a person who I've been working with for a while, and we just found out last night, we were actually going through, I don't speak Spanish, but I had a couple of Spanish totally bilingual people that were like, oh, we don't get to do much voiceover in Spanish. I said, so just do it. And I heard this guy that I've been working with, and I could hear it. I could hear the cadence. He was so much better in Spanish, right? I was like, because he had this rhythm. I was like, and the rhythm dropped out. Like he was doing a little sing song when he was kind of go, well, how we're good. Like when he was going in English, I couldn't hear an accent on him, but I found out that he came over with his family from Colombia when he was in 3rd grade, and he still had the rhythm of the accent from his Colombian Spanish speaking. And that's the thing that disappears last whenever you have an accent. is the musicality of the accent, even if it goes 5 generations down. That's why Minnesotans kind of have that sort of, hi, sweetie, how you doing? Right. It's kind of up there and on down there, and they're going to be talking. Well, that's because the Swedish people, a whole bunch of Swedish people immigrated there 100 or 150 years ago. And if you hear Swedish, it's kind of up and down. It's more like this, right, when they're talking. So you can totally speak a different language, but the musicality is still going to be a rhythm. It's still going to be there. So I heard and I went, buddy, start thinking. First of all, freaking do some voiceover in Spanish. Like, this is like your wheelhouse. Because the other person who was bilingual Spanish too said, he sounds beautiful. Like, you could hear it. It just went like, like, I don't know the language, but you can hear, I can hear pitch. I can hear cadence. I can hear confidence. You know, I can hear this rhythm. And I said, the second thing is, I said, I want you to not think that you're, when you speak English, and he thinks he had to put on a facade, like he had to sound more Englishish. I said, no, you got to sound like yourself. Like you have to get into the honesty of yourself. I said, even if you have to think Spanish and speak English or whatever, you got to get to the core of yourself, because he was kind of putting on people that go to a different language, they'll sometimes try to think that they have to put on a certain way to sound, say, in English, American, or a certain way to, and it's a wall. You got to tear down that wall. You got to be like, no, you have to inject part of yourself, and no matter what role you do, I don't care if you're playing an angry ogre in a video game, there has to be something, you know, or there's a tragedy or whatever, you know, you have to pull some part of you that's actually experienced something like that and infuse it into the work. And I think we made really good strides that night. And I felt so glad, because our eyes went, oh my gosh, like we all went, that was it, you know? But yeah, I love coaching, and it's little things like that. And of course, teaching people I love character voicing and acting, and trying to just come up with different ways of doing things. So yeah.
Wow. No, that sounds incredible. And I think that's part of, not for everyone, I think it's different, but I think that's part of the greatest moments of art, is like doing something for someone, whether it be coaching or the art itself, or a mix, and that like see their eyes lit up, and that like moment of like,
understanding,
enjoyment, excitement.
Yeah. And when you connect with someone and you get an understanding that was not previously there, you know, and we're losing so much of that. I mean, you know, not to get into too much stuff, but whenever we get into you get into the political scene, you know, I'm not going to take sides on certain things, but I'm going to say is that we're increasingly, probably partially because of the internet, people can be so mean to each other, say things to each other that they would never say to others' face, right?
There's no true.
And you know, just horrible troll-like comments, and you know, you get, and then there's the propensity, there's the want to fire back, and it just keeps going back, and it escalates, and we're losing a certain amount of genteel, you know, communication. I even remember when I was a kid, I mean, different political parties would disagree, but it always had a little more of the air of something more, you know, I disagree with the gentleman from South Carolina. You know, I disagree. And then the other one's like, well, yes, that may be true. You know, it's like, it was like that. And now it's just like, stab, you know, and it's just like, no, can't you?
It's definitely a lot more polarized. That's 100% true.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm also, you know, what my graduate degree was in art and art history. So I also I'm like a historian buff. And, you know, we've been through times like this before. I mean, we've been through bad times, you know, things even out. My only worry, of course, is that we are, you know, will exceed, you know, we have such technological means that our technology may be outstripping the means of our little monkey minds to keep track of it. Right. Yeah. Before, if we didn't have the capacity, we'd like burn ourselves out in, you know, unfortunately, like a local war or something, but there was never like, we're going to destroy civilization. Like now you just need dumb up and go really bad, really fast. So, but yeah, I mean, communication is so key. And I think that's why voiceover, right? It's an art, it's a craft. Painting, music. I mean, you know, people from all these different political, religious kind of things getting together, and they'll hear a piece of music and it's beautiful, and they'll just melt. You know, it's just beautiful. So, so that we need the arts. We need the arts.
And
definitely.
arts have been like, going to like medieval times, like art. I mean, even till now, like arts are a huge part of like the culture in many
Yeah.
different ways. Like you have the Enlightenment, and there's also like this association with painting, and then art post World War II. There's all these interesting connections between art and the history.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's pretty fascinating.
It is extremely fascinating. I mean, I love the study of history from the most ancient of times till modern, and the interconnectivity that we have with each other, as human beings into the world is just fascinating to me.
Mm.
A lot of us, will try to segregate that because we don't have an understanding of how interconnected we really are. That's why, I'm a big proponent for studying history, social sciences, because that breaks that up when you start saying, oh, these people were having problems then. They may have been giants of their time, but they still had problems. They still had things they wrestle with that we wrestle with today.
Yeah.
Or, these people that we one of the things is, you think these people are perfect. And then you read about them, you really understand them. Oh my gosh, so-and-so general, president, whatever, had mental illness.
Yeah.
So-and-so, but they did great things. They were flawed. This person may have done things by our modern standards that we would judge poorly, but they still did great things. Like you can be, do great things and be a bad person, or you can be or vice versa, right? You can do all this stuff, and it's and that's artists, same thing. I mean, there's artists out there that, for instance, just trying to think. Picasso was basically considered a psychic vampire in the sense of how he sucked the life energy out of people, made great works of art. I mean, there's just, you have to separate the art from the artist. And also shows that whatever, even if someone's a bad person, inside there might be something very good inside them. We're not one dimensional beings. It's the same thing with a voiceover. Like I'll instruct people, have subtext, don't just, unless it's like a outright slapstick comedy thing, you want to have subtext. You want to have what the character is saying and what the character is thinking. And sometimes they align, sometimes they don't. Right.
Yeah.
It's much more interesting to have a person that is, let's say, not very intelligent, and they're trying to act intelligent because they know they're not intelligent. Right. Instead of them just being big and dumb. Right. They might be like, oh, I'm going to say these big words and start throwing out things. And and the smart person is like a person that's more well-educated, I should say, would say where did that word come from? Or there's a certain defensiveness into it. Like if you get that kind of subtext, and it's the same thing when I paint and draw, if I make something very beautiful, I always put something in that's a little imperfect. Too much symmetrical makes things uncanny valley.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah. So you want to have something that's a little off. You want to have a little, maybe someone that looks perfect with a slightly crooked smile, or maybe something that's just a little off, but in a human way.
Yeah.
We all look in the mirror, and in our image, where in our mind's eye, we might sometimes think, oh, I'm doing pretty well, and you look in the mirror and go, oh, what happened there?
Yeah.
But we look human.
True enough.
So, but it is a philosophy, that's the whole thing, I mean, I know we're kind of straying off the topic of
it's all good. Like I like these to go to wherever they lead to naturally.
But it also is interwoven with how I feel, art and life and things mesh together. So, that's life is not simple. Your craft should not be simple in how, I mean, it should be simple in the sense of how you execute a lot of things because you want to have a system. But at the same time, you have to be cognizant of, the humanity and the richness of life and the richness of the experience that you are going through in your journey. So, and what others are going through too. That's how, one of the things that an actor wants to do, and an artist too, same thing when I do art, is I want to crawl inside the mind of the character, right? And I want to understand the mind of character, whether, and that's one of the things I like about acting is that, like, yes, I cannot necessarily be a person from a different nation in a different time. I'm not that person, but I can try to find analogous experiences that I have, and I can try to empathize with them, And even when you're playing a villain is a hero in their own mind, right?
Yeah.
So you have to try to find something redeeming about them. If you have a good person, put a little salt in there, right? Make something a little, maybe they're good, but they're proud. Maybe they're good, but they're, have something they don't like a certain type of person, right?
Yeah.
They can still have prejudices and still be an overall good character. Same thing, the villain that loves small children, or the villain that will never betray his or her word, or that sort of thing. There's like an honor instead of just, some angry, kill, or a villain just, whoa,
For sure.
Right. Unless it's a cartoon, like if it's a goofy cartoon, everyone gets in on the joke because they know it's, but yeah, you have to play with that nuance. It's what's going to make things fun. And also, hopefully it gives you some sort of, there's research involved in it, right? You can do an acting part or draw a piece of art or something. You go, I never knew. Oh my gosh, they did this. Oh my gosh, they had to go through this struggle. Oh goodness, like, oh, how would I have dealt with that? And so it kind of brings you a little closer to the empathy of your fellow, human beings.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I also feel like comics have like just lore very interesting villains with like different fears and motivations and stuff. Like even very iconic ones. I mean, the Joker might be stereotypical. Even like Lex Luthor is a very interesting character.
But think about how they evolved. I mean, first of all, they've had, some of them had 75, 80 years to evolve. One of the things I'll talk about is they'll say, oh, comics, that's going to wash itself out. And I'm like, out of movies. And I'm like, do you realize 80 years of comic books developed by some of the, the best writers and comic book illustrators? They're practically a storyboard in themselves. Yeah. And then what they do when they get into the, Marvel Cinematic Universe or DC Universe, they take the best of the stories. They'll go, oh, well, that plot line didn't make sense because we evolved it. And this thing went down a wrong turn. We're going to take all the stuff that was kind of different artists, different directors, different everything. So, one guy says, I like this, another person drops that, and it becomes convoluted. Yeah. But if you do a movie, then you can get really good screenwriters and stuff to put things together, and, good researchers. But yeah, it's comic books can go a long, long way. And then you get into graphic novels. And I mean, those are nice pieces of art. Not all of them. And just like anything else, you can have crap writers and crap drawers, just like you do as a novelist. But there's some very rich lore there. And it's all, it's our modern mythology. It's we don't have necessarily, Zeus or whatever, God that was striding around. We have our superheroes that are basically the two kinds are they're either gods that are, the two kinds of superheroes they have and they often have this argument among DC, like DC is gods playing men most of the time. And Marvel, it's men playing gods.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? Because you have Superman and Wonder Woman, Batman is his own little beast, his own little wee beastie. But I mean, Spider-Man is a human, right? With super extraordinary powers. Thor is a god, but in general, that's the kind of cadence that they always had. There's some great stuff out there. And I always tell people, like, they'll say, I don't like science fiction. I don't like this kind of stuff. I'm like, it's the story. It's the comes first. I can't say, oh, I don't like romances, right? If I see a good story, it's a romance, it's going to be good no matter what genre it is, or special effects. If it's a good, now we're jaded by special effects anyway, but it doesn't matter. If the story's good, people are going to love it. If the special effects are good and the story's crap, it's not going to pass the test of time, except to maybe like special effects geeks that will follow the path of that. But yeah, story first, character, all that juicy stuff has to come first. Everything else is fluff.
Yeah, that I agree with that as a huge movie fan. But I think stories are woven into all pieces of art, paintings, songs.
You're telling a story.
Yeah.
And you can tell a story different ways. It can be a snapshot. It can be a small piece, a couple minutes, hour. Beautiful. There's so many things. And then what I'm always interested in is the mixed media aspect of it. Voiceover combined with painting, combined with writing. Then it just gels. I like the whole idea of, one of the things I like about coaching sometimes is that, putting people in the right places at the right times, and trying to figure out what their strengths are and their weaknesses, and how to shore up their weaknesses and develop their strengths. And then just working with them, and then trying to expand that. Like, sometimes people go, I can't do this. And I'm like, no, you can do it. Just try, expand, go out of that comfort zone a little bit. As an artist, you have to be willing to just throw down. One of the primary things about doing voice acting is being able to take direction.
Yeah.
Right. Being able to someone to tell you, whether you agree or you have to fulfill the author's intention and stuff like that. But also as a thought experiment, right? Being able to, on command, do something different. And voice acting is like that. It's like rapid, boom. It's like why a lot of voice actors do improv, because it's like, here's a script, go now.
Yeah.
Now, the good thing is we don't have to memorize the lines like a stage actor, but we still have to interpret. We have to interpret things really. And we got to have a lot of wheelhouse characters or back pocket characters that you can take and modify. So, for instance, if I'm taking a character, and I might have a character that might have a lower voice like this, right? And so he's just talking. That might be a back pocket character. So, but perhaps maybe I find out he's from a different country. I want to take that sort of person and I want to break it that way. But then maybe he's more like that, right? I'm still doing the same person, maybe the same cadence, but it all depends, just like what I'm trying to do. It all just depends. And that's kind of, but I have a base. So they'll go, oh, you did all these different characters. It's like, no, I had a base that I'm going to, I work with, and then I can easily switch up and make it sound like it's a very different sort of thing. And then of course you add attitude and characterization and whatnot. Yeah. So quick, you got to be quick.
For sure. Are there any like voice actors or actresses that you look up to as like good role models?
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure there's a lot.
You know what? One of the sweetest guys I ever met and talked to was Rob Paulson. He's a guy that Pinky and the Brain. He did Pinky. He was Yakko in Animaniacs, and I attended a seminar of his, and he was the sweetest guy. He was, they always had that saying, "Don't meet your heroes." Mm-hmm. I met him, and he was so nice. There was a seminar he gave a seminar up in San Francisco, and he talked to us like regular human beings, and then he broke up. And then it was like an hour and a half or two. And then he stayed for another hour or two answering everyone's questions. Gave me like 10 minutes, gave everyone like 10 minutes apiece of people there. And his agent or his handler had to basically drag him out. Like, we got to catch the plane. He kept going, we got to catch the plane. And he was so nice and so sweet. You can hear him on Talking Tunes. I listened to his audiobook about his life. Just the sweetest guy. But there's him, Vocal Chameleons. I always like, Tara Strong. What's Mel Blanc. There's the classics, Bugs Bunny, all that kind of stuff. But there's just so many people. I can't even. They're flashing through my brain now, and you're asking me. And
no worries.
Like, where's my
not to put you on the
list?
Spot.
Because I'm gonna go, oh, I forgot so and so, But yeah, there's just what is it? I was trying to think. Anyway, they'll come to my mind later. But yeah, there's just a ton of them. Yeah. But yeah, definitely. Yeah, those are some people I look up to. The ability to just be a vocal chameleon, I just really love. And good actors. Sometimes your inspiration doesn't even come from a voice actor. It could become an actor. You could be influenced by a painter, or you can be, it's there's so many things out there, especially if you're one of those people that just loves art in general. But yeah, those are a couple I can throw off the top of my head.
Nice. Mark Hamill is always a.
Oh yeah. Luke Skywalker. Who would have thunk?
Yeah.
Right. The best Joker in the world. Right.
Such a good voice. Yeah.
Yeah. Mark Hamill. And did you ever hear him do his Harrison Ford?
No.
Oh my gosh. He's like a kid, he gets his voice real low. He's just like, it's so great. And you're just like, whoa, because he really sounds like Harrison Ford. Yeah.
I
You
gotta
got
look
to,
it
because
up.
you're always hearing him kind of up here.
Yeah.
He's kind of always talking like that. And and you'll actually hear him in the Batman series. He would do a lot of the walk-on characters too, like the big thugs and stuff like that. So he was, you didn't even know it was him, but just incredible. And all those people's like, when we go back to like I said, Tara Strong, so many voices, Powerpuff Girls, Harley Quinn, oh my gosh, just so many things. Raven from, was it Young Justice? There's so many of those things. So yeah, I mean, they're just all over. I'm blanking on those now. You're not, but I'll think about
Young Justice, the newer show, has a lot of good voice. I don't know their names, but just like the voices are pretty interesting in that show.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Teen Titans was great.
Classic. Oh yeah. Oh, what the heck? I was trying to think of the guy that Peter Cullen. Oh, Frank Welker. Oh my gosh, how could I was like, the man. You get a chance to look at Frank Welker and look at his IMDb. Do you know? Are you familiar with who he is?
No, you'll have to jog my memory.
The voice of Megatron, Scooby Doo, and Fred. All the lions, and he does animal noises like crazy. There was one thing that Rob Paulson had this thing about him, and they told him they wanted Frank Welker to do a lobster sneezing, and he looked at him straight in the face and said, "Male or female?" Slimer and the Real Ghostbusters, Super Friends, Droopy, you look at his stuff and you'll just go, oh my gosh, he's like one of the highest grossing voice actors around, like making billions of dollars for these things because he just does it all.
Wow.
Just does it all. Like you'll hear him as like a little animals in the background, or like I said, or Transformers, right? So it's just check him out. I could just send you a list of people.
Yeah, no, I would love that. I would love that.
Yeah. Oh, anyway. But so that's pretty much it. I was trying to think, is there anything else any other questions you had on mind?
I feel like that was the big stuff. I feel we covered a lot of ground in just a short time.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a ranger and a rover, so apologies for that. People
no.
Voice actor, what the hell?
I kind of prefer that because I think it's good to have a natural conversation and let it flow.
Well, yeah, and also not like all about me, look at can do, like it feels kind of disingenuous, right? I mean, and hey, you can get that people's reels, right? You can just listen and see what people see and hear what people.
I guess I just have two quick, well, I don't know about quick questions, but one is for anyone that is interested, and you've kind of talked about this a little bit, but for anyone that is interested in voiceover, voice acting, is there any additional just tips or advice that you would like to give them?
First of all, you're an artist. Be gentle with yourself. Don't beat yourself up too much. Don't be a perfectionist. I've done that so many times in my life. And then what happens is you get, paralysis paralysis rather, where it has to be perfect. Do the best job you can. Be proud of the experience that you did when you made it, and then move on. And then just move on. And then don't worry about it. Voice acting is about audition. You'll get better over time. You need to trust yourself a lot. Just trust yourself. Just fall over the cliff. And what you'll find out when you fall over the cliff, you're either going to fly or you're going to make a big splat sound, and then you're going to get a good story out of it. You go, oh my God, did I really suck then? And then you laugh at it, and then you go on to the next experience. Because, just my family saying is, basically is, as long as you get a good story out of it, all good, right? As long as you limp away from the crash, you'll be fine. But do that. Get yourself get some sort of training, collaborate with people, listen to people, have them listen to you, be honest and truthful without being malicious. always be encouraging to each other. You're in a community. If I ever coach anyone, it's not like sound wrong, this is wrong. It's going to be like, oh, that was a really good job. Can we try a little bit of this extra here? Can we try a little bit of that? Because a lot of the people that do that, they're already really good, and you're really talking about little shifts. There's little 1-2% shifts that you're just trying to make them stand out and be a little more evocative and get away from their preconceptions. But yeah, you do that and keep training, keep learning, keep training, and get your education. If you want to start off slow, don't buy yourself like $3,000 worth of stuff in the beginning. You can train in the beginning, and you can even do certain voiceovers. You can even get yourself $100 condenser mic, get yourself a little free software like Audible, or not Audible, Audacity, yes, Audacity, which is what I use, oddly enough, and Audition, and go into a closet that's padded, just with clothes. Set your mic in there as a walk-in closet, and then you just need a padded place. If you snap your fingers, you're not going to hear an echo, and that'll get you started. And then you can start recording and listening to yourself and getting better. And if you do it long enough, you'll hear in 2 months your stuff originally was crap. You're like, oh, that was crap, total shite. And then it'll get better and better and better as long as you listen and progress and ask questions and get on. There's tons of vebsites you can get on, via Body Shop. You can enroll in places. There's coaches for different levels. Some places are like $100 for a class. Some will be free webinars. Some of them will be, you get what you pay for. Best coaches, you might pay $450 an hour. A demo might, a good demo might cost you $1,000, $1,200. If you want to go that route, like, you can start off small though. Like, you have to kind of know what you're aiming for, but start off. It's like if I teach guitar to people, right? I don't care. Get yourself $100. I want you to understand the fretwork. I want you to understand how it works. Heck, maybe you got to press down a little harder. It's going to make your fingers stronger, right? Yeah. So learn how to work it. A lot of these tools that everyone wants is bells and whistles. It makes things smoother. It makes things easier. It's kind of like a blues guitarist. You know what I mean? Like, if you give a great blues guitarist a guitar, he's going to sound excellent even on a freaking scrappy guitar. But you give a great guitar to someone who's a novice, they're still going to be going.
Yeah.
So, you just don't put so much money into it. Learn, experience, or no money at the beginning. Just come in and do a workout, with someone else, right? Just, there's tons of stuff out there. Just, there's a community, and we all want to help each other out. So do that first. I'd hate to see you blow money on something you don't love.
For sure.
So yeah, that'd be my initial advice.
I think that's all really well said. I guess the only last question is there anything else you'd like to say or talk about before we conclude?
Pick a topic and I'll start talking about it. But not necessarily. I mean, I love talking to you. We can, if there's anything you want to ask me, voiceover or non-voiceover related, I'm certainly game to listen. But I'm happy. I'm happy with my experience. It was very nice, talking and you listening. You're a great listener, by the way. Thank you for letting me ramble on. I know
it's very informative. I mean, the reason I started this podcast is to learn about other people's passions and really to learn from that as well. And I have the opportunity now to talk to a variety of different people doing a variety of different things. And it's all been a great learning opportunity.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I love that too. But yeah, so I feel awkward now. I was just like talking way too much.
No, all good. Yeah, we could call it there, but I just want to say thank you again, Rhett, so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate having you on here. Yeah,
I really did. And I'm glad I got to meet you. You're a very nice guy, and I'm glad we even got to talk a little bit before. It was nice to get to know you some. So, and I wish you well on continuing to grow your podcast and keep meeting. Hope you meet some really cool, excellent people along the way. And thank you for just having it and having other artists and other science or all the people you're talking to. Thanks for giving them a platform.
No,
it's really appreciated.
And if you want, it's no problem to me to include your meetup link and stuff like that. So if people in the Bay want to join, that could be an easy way.
Yeah, I can throw that to you. Yeah.
Perfect.
And it's free. So we're a workout group. There's like, the thing is that what I want to do is I want to put the spark in people.
Mhm.
And then if they want to, pursue something else, if not necessarily with me, but whoever, right? But I want you to feel, the reason I created mine was my meetup was to start people off, let them know that it's okay to be creative. You're in a safe space. Have as much fun as you want. You're going to make some great friends, if you choose to do so, either in my group or other creative communities. We're all out there. We all are striving so hard to connect with each other, artists and humanity in general.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think on that note, that's a good place to end. But thank you so much again, Rhett. It was an
Yeah,
incredible experience.
sure thing. Have a good one.
You too.